Hi all. What I want to do today is talk about assignment 3 for ITC561. So a wee bit of guidance on this one. So this one is the AWS implementation. This is where we're going to build some stuff in AWS. It's worth 10%. It's due on the 26th of April. Okay. So again, the background. We're still with the DR alarms. You're a cloud consultant. You've been approached by them to help them move into the cloud, improve their data center. The MD, as we've been aware, is still unsure if this is the right move. Still thinks we're probably a bit too small about moving to the cloud. We should be spending our money on design, engineering, and development, not on IT. But he's being pushed back by the engineering manager and the sales manager, who are both concerned that the company needs to upgrade its infrastructure in order to survive and expand. So to cut a long story short, we're now at the stage where you've offered to them to build a POC, a proof of concept environment, to show them how it'll work, to give them some idea of what this is going to look like, how people will be able to work with it, and so forth. So you will set up this basic AWS site using the AWS Educate account that you should have by now. You will have 4 things you need to set up. You'll need to set up a VPC, a virtual public cloud, which has both a public and a private subnet. You'll need to set up a Windows server, an EC2 instance in the private subnet, an RDS database instance on that Windows server, and also a WordPress instance on the Windows server. And that will be ultimately to hold installation and configuration details, but also will start to be a preparation for perhaps something on the edge later down the track. So these are the 4 things that you've got to do. You create that virtual public cloud, create the Windows virtual server, the RDS database, the WordPress instance. They're the 4 things you need to do straight up. You then need to have a website that's accessible on your public subnet to allow users to securely access that WordPress instance. And so for tasks 1B, 1C, 1D, you need to set up 2 users, one user who has administrative access and one user who has non-administrative access. So you'll then have to access through the IAM, the Identity and Access Management modules in order to set that up and set that up properly. But the task that you actually have to submit is an instruction manual. Right, so you'll build all this and then submit an instruction manual that describes all the steps that are required for DR Alarms users to access AWS and create each of those instances that we've described. So this should include screenshots along with sufficient explanatory text to ensure that another user could follow the steps without problems. The second part of that manual is you've got to describe how you've secured that DR Alarms VPC, both public and private subnets, and the instances contained within it. So let's talk about what you've done about security. Okay. So what we've got here, the same sort of approach, that very common scenario in private industry as well as government and large industry. The management's considering a move to the cloud, unsure what to do. So what we've got to do is put together this proof of concept for them. So I would recommend the approach is start to look at how to do this. So the recommended course of action, I would say, is if you haven't already done so, log on to the AWS Educate classroom and start to familiarise yourself with it and how you go about it. You'll see that we've given you access in the topics to a whole range of AWS tutorials, which will show you how to set up each of these instances. Work your way through them so that you become comfortable with the way in which they work. Start creating them, but don't forget to write notes as you go and collect screenshots for your instruction manual. When you're finished, test it to make sure it's working correctly. So your manual should be in Word format with the following headings: setting up a VPC, creating a Windows Server instance, creating an AWS RDS instance, create a WordPress instance. Right? You will also need a separate one after that entitled Security, showing us how you've done the security on the VPC. Your diagrams and screenshots must be embedded in the document. Don't attach them as a separate file because they won't get marked. Make sure your report, your instruction manual has a header or footer with your name and student number on it. There's no word count for this assignment, so you can be a bit verbose if you want, but you'll run into large numbers of pages probably with screenshots rather than explanations. But you need to provide references in APA format for any references you've referred to, including the tutorials and an AWS documentation. So some hints. Again, make sure you've read the case study information. Make sure you actually can access the AWS Classroom and have tried the tutorials. Don't leave this till the last minute. Actually, don't wait till this is due. Start now. You can actually work on this for 10 or 15 minutes a week because it takes about 15 to 20 minutes at most for each one of those tutorials. So you could probably have this ready in plenty of time to submit it without any stress on you at all. Big hint, don't try to add extras to your instances. It's not going to get you extra marks, but it'll probably slow you down trying to get the things to work properly. So don't worry about the extras. I'm not. Read the marking criteria to see what we're looking for in each of those questions, and that will also give you some ideas about approach. Don't forget your references, right? That's essential that you put those in. From a practical point of view, make sure you turn off your server instance if you're not working on it. That's going to save you money. Remember, you've only got a limited amount of money, $50 US in credit, and if you leave your server running for a couple of weeks, you're probably going to chew most of that up. And before you ask, this assignment's got to be done in the AWS Educate Classroom. If you use Azure or GCP or some other cloud assignment, it is not acceptable for this assignment. Okay, so it must be done in the AWS Educate Classroom. So again, this is a really good example of a real-world problem, setting up a POC environment, a proof of concept environment. Now, POCs quite often allow organisations to start planning and experimenting with how this is going to work. POCs are one of the tools that we can use to prevent those spectacular failures and to show that the proposed ICT architecture, the security, the roadmaps to the future are actually workable. So now you're really getting into a meaty part of this problem, building that POC so that DR Alarms MD can see it working. So remember, you've got to consider all the different issues that the case study raises, and although we're not concentrating really heavily on security just yet, it's still got to be part of your approach to how you build your environment. So hopefully this environment will give you a lot more to consider about how to approach these issues, even in just a small POC. I think you'll find it rather rewarding. Good luck.